Today we'll be talking about the characters, about amazing characters, about characters who were very influential. Maybe not as influential as Lance and Tommy's success, but still, characters who simply deserve a standing ovation. Characters who, despite being so crucial, nobody seems to notice that. We're talking all the time about those Claudes, CJs, or Nikos. And meanwhile, it turns out that if not for some side characters, some of the main figures would not be able to achieve as much as they eventually did. Especially Claude. Look at this dude. At the end of the game, Claude is a top G. A proper boss who's got enough paper in his pocket to decorate the walls of every apartment in Shoreside Vale with Persian carpets, including the apartment blocks. And he would still have some change for a blowjob and a bologna sandwich. However, despite the fact that Claude earned a lot on his own, there's a big probability that he wouldn't achieve quite as much, if not for 8-Ball. 8-Ball, who at first glance is not that important in the story. Physically, he appears only 2 times. First time in the intro, in which we escape a transport with him. A transport that was taking our ass over to Azkaban. And the second time, when we arrange a proper Colombian fireworks show by blowing up Cartel's ship, where the Pusios built a yayo factory. Other than that, 8-Ball is mentioned in just a few other missions, and that's about it. Nonetheless, we should acknowledge the fact that 8-Ball introduces Claude to a mafioso called Luigi, who in that time, with a great success too, was providing the residents of Portland with high-quality hookers with various sucking modes, just like in Hoover's. Luigi, apart from running a strip club with VIP service, was also a Leone Mafia's a capo, that's the one. And a capo was a very important figure within the Mafia's ranks, as you can see on this highly professional, specifically dedicated for the purposes of this video, illustration. It was 8-Ball who introduced Claude to Luigi. Then Claude done a couple of jobs for him. He was doing well, thanks to which his career in the Mafia progressed. Claude later was working for the Don's son, Joey, for another important capo, Tony, and towards the end, he also became the personal hitman of the Leone Mafia's Don himself. If not for 8-Ball, Claude, at best, would just be wandering around the streets of Liberty City trying to thieve a few bucks off someone's purse every now and then. Alright, maybe I went a bit too far, but we will remember from GTA San Andreas that Claude was not exactly a Lone Ranger kind of dude. He was a skillful guy, but not very resourceful. Claude was very lucky to meet 8-Ball. He even gave Claude some hideout, so he didn't have to sleep in the wild and risk getting banged by some pervert, or some other stinking bum like Darkel. Without 8-Ball, I wouldn't really see a bright future for Claude in Liberty City, to be honest with you. In GTA Vice City, there's a similar situation to GTA 3, but this time, our 8-Ball will be Ken Rosenberg. Fine, maybe he's not a minor character, but it's someone who doesn't have a great opinion within the GTA community, which in my opinion is a bit unfair. Of course, from a certain point, Ken, aka Mr. Vacuum, became a hopeless moron and a drug fiend. All Ken did was stuff local snow in his nose and casually pour drinks for the boys in Malibu. But before Ken became a completely useless junkie, he was a very good informant, and we should give him that. And yes, he was kind of incompetent, but well, he was getting along, wasn't he? He was able to survive in that crazy world. At the very beginning, Ken got Tommy an invitation for a party of the biggest players, celebrities, and criminals in Vice City. If not for Ken, Tommy would not know what to do. Tommy didn't even know Cortez, who was one of the people who organized the failed drug deal in Viceport. Like, Cortez was very important for Tommy. The Colonel told Ricardo Diaz about Tommy, for whom Tommy done a few jobs in order to get to know the drug game, thanks to which he later could become a baron himself. As if that weren't enough, Ken told Tommy about Mr. Paul, so another well-known informant who knew everything that was going on in the city. Avery Carrington, a man whose good advice allowed Tommy to efficiently launder the money coming from the drug trafficking trade, also was introduced to Tommy by Ken. Avery was experienced in the whole property thing and pointed Tommy in the right direction. If not for Ken, who knows what would happen? Sometime later, Ken also told Tommy about Cam Jones, who turned out to be an essential link during the bank heist, let alone the fact that it was Ken who laundered the money earned from the heist, so it could be legally used. So in other words, Tommy could legally spend it. So at first glance, Ken seems to be just another funny fella who only thinks about getting coked up, but the reality is actually a bit different. In San Andreas, the only right choice is Jimmy Hernandez, so a private masseur of Frank Tenpenny's sweaty ass. Jimmy was always treated like some push around. Even CJ was calling him a bitch. And as we remember, CJ wasn't allowed too much, cause those pricks from Crash framed him for murder and could put him inside any minute. Hernandez, however, eventually played a crucial role in the game's story. See, that Mexican smartass managed to collect evidence on Tenpenny's operation and took it to internal affairs. I mean, I don't think anybody saw that one coming from that burrito lover. When I first saw it, I had to pick up my jaw from the floor. Thanks to all this, Tenpenny was in the mud, and his ass was taken to court. Granted, later the corruption reached its peak, and Tenpenny was cleared of all charges. But at least that caused a full-blown riot in the city's streets. People got pissed off and started robbing freaking blenders off each other. Tenpenny, though, had to plan on cutting to Jamaica, cause if them angry-ass rioters caught him on the block, not a lot would remain from his empty head. To put it short, Los Santos was not a safe place for him anymore. Jimmy's actions also benefited the main character of San Andreas, cause Tenpenny could not blackmail him any further. Hernandez's operation also led to CJ being able to clip Pulaski, and eventually to cap Frank Tenpenny in the end of the line mission. Additionally, Jimmy, just like a real hero for this whole operation, he paid with his own life. And the worst thing is, the guy who should be the most grateful for all he had done, so CJ, was the one to dig him his grave, as we see in the High Noon mission. In GTA Liberty City Stories, for me, the most underrated character is that glasses-wearing fat boy with weird fetishes. See, the thing was that JD initially turned his greasy back on the Leones and joined the Sindacos, and then he had a change of heart and decided to return to the Leones. And Salvatore's plan was that, cool, let it be like that. JD can return to the Leones, but not actually. JD is meant to think that he's welcome here. See, Sal wanted JD to give them intel on the Sindacos, so the Sindacos are meant to think that JD's still with them, while in reality, he was sort of an undercover informant who will snitch about the Sindacos' plans to the Leones. And once the Sindacos have got their asses kicked out of Portland, then JD apparently will officially return to the Leones. Apparently, because in reality, once JD outlives his usefulness, he'll end up at the bottom of the river with a hole in his head, just like Uncle Vladdy. And despite the fact that JD was just a rat, he actually ended up being very useful for the Leone Mafia. Thanks to his info, the Leones managed to defend their casino from the Sindacos' attack, who wanted to blow it up. JD also gave info about the casino of the Sindacos, which then in turn, Tony blew up. Tony also got a heads up from JD, thanks to which he saved Salvatore from the cops and regained his boss's respect. And as if that weren't enough, JD's info twice saved Salvatore's life. And in the end, all he got for all this was a bullet into his brain. I mean, from the Mafia's perspective, it was the right thing to do, cause what is that? A guy who constantly hops the fence? One day he works for one gang and the other for someone else? At some point, he just had to get what he had coming to him, and that was exactly what happened. In VCS, we also got a similar situation to GTA 3 and VC. See, at the beginning of the story, while doing Martinez's dirty work, we meet Phil Cassidy. And then, after Vic gets kicked out of the army because of Martinez, who set him up with all these hoes and ganja, Vic was left with nothing, similarly to Claude in GTA 3. No contacts, no place to stay, and absolutely no perspective. It was then when Phil Cassidy gave Vic a helping hand. He gave him his old apartment and got him a job for Marty Williams. Moreover, it was cause of Phil that Vic met Louise, the woman that over time became very important to him. In case someone don't remember, Louise was Phil's sister. In fact, Vic returned the favor on this occasion. Louise was being hit and humiliated by Marty. Marty treated her horrendously, and Vic was her light in the tunnel, was protection. Vic was someone thanks to whom Louise gained confidence and strength that was much needed to cut loose from that stinking asshole. Going back to the main topic though, it's worth mentioning that soon the events unfolded in such a way that Vic took over Marty's business and became a serious player in Vice City himself. As if that weren't enough help already from ever boomshine drunken Phil, we cannot forget that this crazy dude helped Vic in defending his empire from the Mendes brothers' attack. Or about the fact that he helped Vic in boosting a combat helicopter from the military base. You know, the one that could shoot rockets and all that. It was very important, as soon after, that helicopter allowed Vic to mash up Diego Mendez thanks to conducting a proper-ass assault on his main base of operations. So, big credit to Phil, cause he was a good guy. He just drank a bit too much, but I think we can forgive that. In GTA 4, I decided to go with Michelle. You know, that lady that spied Nico from the IAA. And you'll say, yo, hold on a second, I must be out of my mind. That all she done was she just screwed us over. And yes, you'd be right about that. But thanks to that, Nico began his partnership with the United Liberty paper. And what did Nico come to Liberty City for? Well, to settle things with some prick that sold him and his friends out in the past, due to which many of them perished. One of them was living in Liberty City. That one turned out to be harmless Florian, who changed his name and was happily parading the streets telling everybody that he's gay. Never mind that. The thing is that Nico, once he found him, was left with almost no hope, because the guy that now definitely was the one responsible for his friends' deaths was still out there walking free, and Nico had no clue where he could be. Eventually, that person, so Darko Brevic, was found by Mr. Papersheet, who had to look for him all the way in frickin' Romania. I don't know about you, but I personally don't think that no Ray Buccino or other Pegorino would be able, let alone would bother, to locate some stickin' hobo all the way in Romania. So if not for the fact that Michelle screwed us over, Nico would never get caught by the agency. Therefore, he would probably never achieve his initial objective for which he came to America in the first place. And would also probably get locked up or killed because the agency gave him a lot of protection. So yeah, that actually was important too. Before we proceed, I just wanted to quickly tell you about one guy from GTA 1 that not many heard about, and who most definitely is the most insane antagonist in the whole series. I'm talking about Samuel Deaver, who is a complete freak in every department. Bro is a cannibal, an incest, a rapist, a kidnapper, a drug fiend, a drug dealer, an alcoholic, and all that while being a frickin' cop. What I'm saying is that he must be the most underrated antagonist of the whole series, obviously because he's from not very popular GTA 1. Check out the video in the outro about the biggest weirdos in the series, cause we talk about him more there. In The Lost and Damned, there are no fireworks when it comes to the topic of today's video, but I decided that it would be worth to give some credit to Thomas Stubbs, the congressman of Liberty City, whose uncle got killed by Johnny, and he also freed a deranged cannibal for him as well. Yeah, never mind that actually. In any case, Johnny done a few little jobs for that nudist. At the end of the story, Mr. Congressman has returned the favor big time. He confirmed what Ashley heard, so that Billy allegedly wants to rat Johnny and his friends out to the feds. Apart from that, Stubbs also promised to provide backup while Johnny breaks into the prison to put a bullet in Billy's stupid head. And granted, that backup never came, but the intention is what matters, right? Nah, seriously, I actually think it may have something to do with the cut concept of this mission, about which we talked about more in one of the recent videos. So in case you haven't seen it yet, I'll leave it in the outro for you as well. In the ballot, I was also wondering about one thing. See, how on earth did Tony, while being a hopelessly irresponsible hysterical junkie, always has good info? I'm specifically talking about two situations in the game, very crucial too, that Luis was able to handle only because of a good heads up from Tony, who surely didn't just magically find out about it. He had to get his info from somewhere. So I'm talking about Tony's mysterious informant who somehow managed to find out that the $2 million worth diamonds are being sold at the Libertonian Museum, which then allowed Luis to fly over there in a fancy-ass golden helicopter of that crazy Arab in weird pants and steal the diamonds, which then saved Gracie Ancelotti's life. The second situation is at the very end, where Tony, yet again, pulls out the info from his ass that Bulgarin is collecting a big-ass H shipment in Firefly Island. That obviously allowed Luis to mash up him and his whole syndicate to somehow stay alive. So to sum up, it was Tony's mysterious informant that, in my opinion, is the most underrated character in this game. And it's a shame that we have absolutely no idea who they could be. And in GTA 5, I'll just quickly tell you that for me, it would be impossible to choose anyone other than Amanda's tennis coach. Bro at one point extended his training program, and practicing her backhand has all of a sudden turned into a hand job. Michael obviously, having found out about it, got mad angry and chased after the escaping coach. Michael was an unpredictable psychopath, and since all he'd done for the past 9 years was sit on his ass drinking whiskey and smoking cigars in the sunshine, he couldn't fulfill his internal bloodlust, and the coach gave him just the reason to finally pull off some stunt. So Michael indeed pulled a stunt. He pulled a $2 million worth mansion off the hill, completely missing the fact that it by no chance could be a property belonging to some frickin' tennis coach. Obviously, the mansion turned out to be a property of some psycho Mexican cartel boss, Martin Madrazo. Lucky for Michael, Madrazo did not fit him with a new asshole, using a bat you can see right now. But he had to pay for the house's rebuild, and since it wasn't exactly a few bucks, he had to come out of retirement. He robbed a jewelry store, about which Trevor accidentally found out about, who thought that Mikey was dead. And then, we all know what happened. You could say that if not for that inconspicuous coach, GTA 5's story would have never happened, or would definitely look way different. And that would be about it. I'm displaying for you right now the videos I talked about earlier in this episode. Be sure to check them out. Meanwhile, I'm saying goodbye. Take care and see you soon.